Monday, August 9th, 2021. It's 6 p.m., top of the hour, time for the news in the English language. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us in this edition of the news broadcasting live from Yaoundé. Let's begin with our top stories. The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, is renewing the executive organs of the 360 sections nationwide and 17 sections abroad. Cameroon has joined the international community to celebrate the International Indigenous Day with a call to include the indigenous people in modernization and development. A non-governmental organization, Divine Connection Outreach, has donated to orphans and underprivileged at the La Foyer de l'Espérance of Mvoli. These and more will be developed for you in this edition of the news. As you heard in one of our late stories, the operation to renew the executive organs, both basic organs and specialized organization of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, has begun in the 360 sections nationwide and the 17 sections abroad. The following report says the operation will run on to September 30th following a release signed by the chairman of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, Paul Biya. Let's take a listen. According to a circular signed by the party's national chairman, President Paul Biya, concerning the electorate ahead of the renewal, the exercise will run to the 30th of September under strict respect of the sociological components of Cameroon, with a fair representation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The exercise will unfold in the 360 CPDM sections nationwide and in the 17 sections abroad under well-specified conditions. The exercise aimed, among others, to establish the real mapping of the party's basic organs for a more controlled networking of the national territory, which should lead to the strengthening of the local supervision of militants and population. Ahead of this process that began on Saturday, August 7th, the Secretary General of the CPDM Central Committee, Jean Kwete, published practical modalities and the calendar of election. As concerned the youth, women and men wing, who are the most convincing, loyal, faithful, disciplined, competent, humble, and experienced. The process will include a verification of the effective functioning of subsections, branches, and cells which constitute the basic organs of the party. At the end, the validation committee led by the section presidents shall identify supporters at each cell and centralize the data at the level of branches where proposals for the creation of new cells are submitted through the subsections to the validation committee at the section level. Jean Kwete's letter indicates that this renewal of basic and specialized agents of the CPDM party, which is in conformity with its constitution, is being carried out in the build-up to future elections. It is the first renewal exercise within the party since 2015. Former economic advisor to the head of state, Paul Biya, has breathed his last and quit the scene. Christian Penda Ekoka quit the scene on August 8th at the Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto, Canada, after suffering from pancreatic cancer. He quit the scene at the age of 69. The following report has an in-depth of this story. He died on Sunday, August 8th at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto, Canada, after succumbing to pancreatic cancer at the age of 69. Few days ago, the former economic advisor to the head of state was announced dead, but the rumor was debunked by the family members. The staunch opposition activist began his journey with opposition party during the 2018 presidential elections, where the party came out second, after which he resigned from his duty as the economic advisor to the head of state to join the ranks of the opposition. Before officially announcing he will leave the CPDM, the politician said he will support the candidate who will better defend the interests of Cameroonians. After a few years with the opposition, he recently announced he was leaving the opposition party following a misunderstanding with national chairman under the mismanagement of funds of the Survive Cameroon Survival Initiative created to fight against the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. Christian Penda Ekoka was a senior Cameroonian official and former advisor to the President of the Republic from 2010 to 2018. He was born on March 21, 1952 in Douala, Littoral region of Cameroon, and gave up the ghost on August 8 at the age of 69 in Toronto, Canada. He leaves behind his wife, 3 children, the family, and the entire nation to mourn him. And now we take you over to the far north region of the country, where the national coordinator of the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Center, Fcfa Francis, has paid a working visit to the far north region of the country. He provided support to 966 ex-combatants of the Islamic Boko Haram sect in the far north region, and equally to Mora, where he met ex-associates of the fighters, about 284 of them. Let's take a listen to the national coordinator of the DDR Center, Fcfa Francis, speaking to our far north regional correspondent, Musa Abba.
Because you are accompanying us in what we are doing. You are accompanying us in the execution of the missions of the head of state as far as this Boko Haram crisis is concerned. First of all, what prompted the mission? We came as usual, this is not our first time to come, to see the fighters, to see the centers, to see if they are moving well. But particularly, which links to your second question, to see those young women and men who have been flooding out from the Boko Haram hands into our country, those young Cameroonians. Why did we come? Because the numbers are increasing daily, and it is important for us to take measures in order to handle them, in order not to be surprised. What are the measures? The people in the centers are just going to multiply what they are doing. If they had to give them 1 carton of medicine, it will be 10. If they had to give a bag of rice, it may be more. And then they will take care of them. Particularly, we came because we are not going to continue to handle them in the transit center in Mary. We've come on this spot where we are standing a number of times. But I'm pleased to announce to you, and that's one of the reasons that I came, that the head of state gave written instructions, formal written express instructions, that work should start here in the coming days. And if you don't mind, I can show you. These are the instructions which I showed in the center, and I want you people to be witnesses that the head of state is somebody who is serious. When he promises, he realizes. I would like you people to relay this information, that we are not only promising, we are realizing. These are the 3 things I came to do, and to tell the traditional authority of this village, the Lamido who is standing by my side, that in the next few days work is going to start here. And I want to inform you that I'll be coming here. We'll look at the program of the governor, who may not be available these days. We're coming back to launch the work here. I bet you if you come here between today and the day that we're going to launch the work, you will see that material will start coming. So,
Gabonese youths in Cameroon have joined the rest of the Gabonese to celebrate this August 9th, their National Flag Day, at the National Monument in the nation's capital city, Yaoundé. The event was celebrated at the National Museum in solidarity with Semak youths. The celebration was coupled with launch of activities for the International Youth Day. Ruth Fonyong has more in the following report.
Because Gabon's heritage is commonly owned by all the Gabonese, the flag thus constitutes a link between the different ethnic communities, the identity, religious and political diversity spread across the 9 provinces of the country. It is important to reiterate the attachment of this 12th edition, green, yellow, blue, which represents the soul of the Gabonese people and identity specific to a community proud of its dynamic youth.
I think the flag day here in Cameroon, because it is the national day that is celebrated in Gabon, so we are living in the context of regional and sub-regional integration. So we are showing the togetherness, the living together between all youth of CEMAC zone, all youth of the 6th country of CEMAC.
An event of colors which coincides with the launching of activities marking the international celebration of youth or the participation of the United Youth of the CEMAC zone, who joins these compatriots on this day.
So we are trying to show that we are concerned with everything that is happening in all CEMAC country. So when Gabon is celebrating their Flags Day, we are also concerned with this celebration because it is a CEMAC country and we are all CEMAC youth. This is why we are celebrating the event.
A community of thousands of souls spread across Cameroon who came out in their numbers to mark the festivity of colors. Its pride in belonging to a nation, Gabon, a broader country in many ways.
One of our late stories, Cameroon has joined the rest of the globe to celebrate the International Indigenous Day under the theme, taking into account indigenous population in the regional development process. The Minister of Social Affairs, Pauline Irengene, who chaired the opening ceremony in Yaoundé, called on all stakeholders to involve indigenous people in the development process. Ruth Fonyong attended the launching ceremony in Yaoundé and put together this report for the news.
Leaving no one behind, indigenous people and the call for a new social contract is the global theme chosen by the United Nations Permanent Forum for the 27th edition of the International Day of Indigenous People. Through this theme, the UN wished to reiterate the appeal launched to the state parties for the international consensus of the leaders of 193 countries, including Cameroon, and it also intends to further promote the social and economic inclusion of indigenous people through the definition of a new social contract.
The specific needs of the indigenous people have to be taken into account in the national development and plans of the region, but in all the initiatives taken by the government. As you notice, things are being done, but we think that we have to continue to make efforts to make sure that no one is left behind.
In the absence of a universal accepted definition, the United Nations has determined international criteria for identifying indigenous people as being generally populations whose identity and culture are inseparable from the territories in which they live and the natural resources on which they depend.
What we are expecting to accompany us to settle and to develop what we have already acquired. Our traditional medicine, our pastorals, our know-how. Serenity.
The 13th edition of the Indigenous People in Cameroon has as theme taking into account indigenous people in the regional development process. An emphasis during the launching ceremony was laid on the consolidation of peace and living together in the municipalities housing indigenous groups. The theme is a reminder of the commitment of states, including Cameroon, to implement the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development.
Still in connection to this year's Indigenous Day, launched this Monday, August 9th, 2021, by the Minister of Social Affairs, Pauline Irene Ngene, the need to recognize the rights of indigenous people to modernization and development is primordial in Cameroon. The peculiarities require special protection, without which indigenous people will always feel marginalized and relegated to the back. Geraldine Nasser has more in the following report.
Indigenous people are the holders of unique cultures, traditions, languages, and knowledge systems. Their unique experience with the earth makes them real actors in the fight against climate change. Historically, however, indigenous people have been marginalized by dominant societies and have often faced assimilation and cultural genocide.
Where indigenous people, they live on top of the hills, and to get to the nearest health center is a very big problem. We have access to education, where we have our young children who face difficulties to go and attend schools because they live on top of the hills.
To such marginalization and fringe dwelling, as they have much to contribute to the society and can bring to both national and international debate value advice about the great issues facing humanity in this new millennium. They equally have dynamic living cultures and therefore need their place in the modern world to be participants and benefit from a development that is sustainable, considering the fact that they have been victims of development for a very long time.
More and more children coming from those groups are now scholarized. They are going to school, even at the level of the university. Secondly, you have many of them who now are civil servants in our country, and many groups or associations have been created, and they are carrying out their activities to be sure that what the order bring as developmental projects is really matching with their needs.
Nevertheless, integrating these indigenous people into societal activities like every other individual is the quest for this year's National Indigenous Day. They therefore have the right to the conservation and protection of the environment and the productive capacity of their territories and resources.
And on to this humanitarian story, Divine Connection Outreach, a non-governmental organization, has donated foodstuff, school needs, and some basic necessities to underprivileged children at the Foyer de l'Experience of Mvoli, a hostel and temporary refuge for the homeless and vulnerable children. Anne Omeko has more in the following report.
Bags of rice, oil, books, pens, face masks are some of the few items, amongst others, offered by an NGO to some underprivileged children living at Foyer de l'Experience, a hostel and temporary refuge for the homeless and underprivileged children, located in Volé, a neighborhood in Yaoundé. Warmly received under strict barrier measures, August 7, 2021, a move to put smile on the faces of these children.
Our presence here today is to lend a hand to the life of the needy, especially the widows and the orphans who are in need of help and who are helpless and hopeless. We have come to give them hope so that they could be happy and try to have better living conditions.
As a way of appreciation, some of these youths showcase their talents and dance in front of the guests.
Je suis très content pour le don que vous êtes venu.
I am very happy for the gift you've given to us, and let God bless you all. With all those school items, I will be going to school happily and eat well before leaving.
The founder believes that the Almighty God will use people to come to the aid of these children who did not apply to be born. Created some 44 years ago, a mother filled with love for children, Leonie Balanga. She is often assisted by the active director of the center, all this to accompany these children towards a brighter future.
And now we take you over to the littoral region of the country, where two maintenance agents of the electricity supply company Enio have been electrocuted at the Bisenge neighborhood in the nation's economic capital, Douala. The two workers were working on repairing the high tension pole in Douala before being electrocuted and taken to the Douala General Hospital, where they are receiving intense medical treatment. The following report has an in-depth of this story. Two agents of the electricity supply company in Cameroon, Enio, were electrocuted while working on an electricity pole at the Bisenge neighborhood in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, over the weekend. In a video circulating on social media, the two agents of the electricity supply company are seen busy carrying out repairs on the cable of the said electricity pole when suddenly they were electrocuted by a high-tension cable. They were trying to rehabilitate an interrupted supply line in the Bisenge neighborhood in the nation's economic capital. Report says they are currently receiving intense medical treatment at the Douala General Hospital. Shocked by the scene, many have been questioning why and how they ventured in such an assignment without turning off power supply on the set high tension pole. Such incidents are rare in the country. The report from the nation's economic capital takes us to the end of this edition of the news in the English language. But before we part companies, we remind you of our bullet points. The ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the CPDM, is renewing the executive organs of the 360 sections nationwide and 17 sections abroad. A non-governmental organization, Divine Connection Outreach, has donated to orphans and underprivileged at the La Foyer de l'Expérience of Mvoli. Cameroon has joined the international community to celebrate the International Indigenous Day with a call to include the indigenous people in modernization and development. And it is here that the curtain draws for this edition of the news for this Monday, August 9, 2021. Meet Jean-Jacques Zé at 8 p.m. for the news in the French language. I'll be with you tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. But do not go away. Do have a wonderful evening in the company of our programs. Camdis Television cares. Goodbye for now.